It may very well be that that process, by the time we get through it, closes the window on mounting a realistic campaign for president, that it might close. I've concluded it has closed.
All right, and with that, of course, as we discussed in the previous segment, as we welcome you back to the Steve Malzberg Show, Joe Biden not running, not going to mount a campaign, but joining us on the panel is Elura Nanos. She is an attorney and author of How to Talk to Your Lawyer. And Adam Thompson, he's also an attorney, and he's also a syndicated talk show host. All right, so panel, let me ask you here, and let me start with you ladies first. Laura, let me ask you about Biden. You know, we had on Michael Tomasky in the previous segment of the Daily Beast, and he said the fact that Biden went on to give what could have been a campaign speech if he said, I am running, for 20 minutes, kind of he's leaving the door open that if anything happens to Hillary's candidacy, they could turn to him and he'll be ready.
Sure. I mean, I think that Biden doesn't want to squash Hillary's candidacy, but I think he's happy to save it. So I think that if the time comes that she needs saving, he can swoop in and do that at any time. And I appreciate his statements that the door is closing on the time to run a serious campaign. But the truth is, he doesn't really need to have run a campaign up to this point. People are aware of him, and I think that if Hillary's campaign goes south and Biden comes in, he'll probably win. So he doesn't really have to do anything beyond what he's doing now.
All he has to do, Adam, is hope that the FBI charges her with something.
Well, that would make him smile, I'm sure, because then she'd be out of the picture. But no, really, I never thought he was going to be a serious candidate anyway. I'm not surprised by this. Trust me, behind closed doors, all the Democratic, hardball players were saying, you're not running, go off into the sunset. He gave that whole initial statement from before when he said, based on what happened with his son's death and other things, he really wasn't up for the job. How do you really come back from that? Because the Republicans would tear him apart just on that.
One question to you, Adam, then I'll go to Elura. Then why did he just the other day make it a point to combat, Hillary's statement that she said Republicans are on her enemies list, and he said Republicans aren't my enemy? Why did he just, purposely go after that statement made by Hillary?
Oh, you mean Joe Biden says things that make no sense and he has a gaffe?
No, it wasn't
Listen,
a gaffe.
He's always saying things that are out of line, out of focus, and just doesn't seem to make sense.
No, I agree with that, but Elura, it seems like there was a purpose for that.
Yeah, and I feel like the purpose for that is differentiating himself from Hillary Clinton. I mean, he may support her, and he may back a lot of her policies, but the bottom line, he's a different person. He's establishing a separate identity, and that identity is really more one of reasonableness and bipartisan working, and I think that's very different than the way Hillary Clinton.
And most importantly, the biggest difference is Hillary will tell you is she's a woman and he's a man. That's the biggest difference between Hillary and everybody. All right, let's turn to Donald Trump. The ABC News, Washington Post poll, more good news. Trump leads in expectations. He leads in attributes. Carson is second place in all these questions in that poll. Let me play you something that Trump said to Stuart Varney on the Fox Business yesterday. He was told about other countries that are banning anyone who goes to fight ISIS from returning to the country. Apparently right now you could go fight ISIS and you could come back into our country. And they're also closing some mosques in other countries. And he was asked about that. Let's watch.
I would do that. Absolutely. I think it's great. I know they have a lot of proposals over there. If you go out, you go fight for ISIS,
can you do it?
You can't come back. Why can't you do it? You can do it here. Can you close a mosque? I mean, we do have Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard about the closing of the mosque. It depends. If the mosque is, loaded for bear, I don't know. You're going to have to certainly look at it. But I can tell you one thing. If somebody goes over and they want to fight for ISIS, they wouldn't be coming back. And in this country, that's been proposed for 2 years now. And as usual, our politicians can't get together on it.
All right. So, Adam, I mean, I'm surprised the media hasn't made a big deal about this. Donald Trump wants to close mosques. But even if they do, or they did, or if the whole world heard this, it would only help them, because the average person in this country says and wants monitoring of mosques, because there's been a history in the past that some mosques, even in this country, have allegedly preached radicalization and urged criminality.
Well, the statements that he's making show why the poll numbers keep going up for him, and he's reflected on by the public the way he is, because they see him and Ben Carson as outsiders.
Right.
The comment that he made, that look how they can't even get past, that if someone leaves America and goes and fights with ISIS, that they can come back here, is just preposterous. And he said that bills or proposals floating for a year or two. That should have been put on the table. You go there, it's treason. You can't come back. If we get you, you're going to be charged.
Right.
It
Laura,
shows a breakdown of our process, Steve.
Well, I think that what we're seeing here is Donald Trump just cashing in on everything that makes him likable to so many people. I mean, both Trump and Carson are being supported for what they are not, as opposed to what they are. And, you know, they're not political insiders and they're not politically experienced. So Trump is kind of cashing in on that. And making these statements that I think at first blush people do agree with. Of course, no one wants someone who's fighting with terrorists to come back into the country. There's no question about that. But I think that what Trump's doing is what he does best, which is oversimplifying these issues in a way that gets him a lot of popular support, but isn't really realistic and isn't really addressing the subtlety of the way the legal system.
The mosque thing might be a little more difficult, but I don't think there's anything duplicitous about, or questionable about if you go out of the country to either train with or support ISIS in any way, you ain't coming back. And if you're coming back, you're never getting out of jail. I mean, that seems pretty cut and dry. I think a poll would show that 99% of Americans would support that. By the way, Trump, strongest leader in the poll, Trump, 47%. Best chance, Trump, 43%. Best on immigration, Trump. Closest on issues, Trump. Understands, Trump. Best experience, Trump. Most honest, Trump. Although Carson is most honest with 33. Trump is second. So, I mean, right on down the line. All right, we're coming back. Lots more to get to on the Malzberg panel. So I'd advise you to keep it right where it is on Newsmax television. All right, back with the Malzberg panel. Elura Nanos is here and Adam Thompson. All right, let's talk about the Speaker of the House because Paul Ryan has reportedly said he will do it. But he will only do it on his terms. He will only do it if he gets unanimous support. He'll only do it if they can't recall the Speaker anymore. All these kinds of orders. And I'm sorry. I don't care who he is or who he thinks he is. Adam, if I'm one of those conservative Republicans in the Tea Party caucus or any of the conservative caucuses, I'm not going along with these rules.
I wouldn't go along with it. It's amazing. He wants the special treatment and the special setup that all the previous speakers didn't have. Don't you think the speaker who's leaving Barner wanted that too? But he didn't get it. Listen, if you're going to be speaker, there's going to be division. You're going to have to unite people. Sometimes there's going to be huge battles. There's going to be different people within your own party on different issues, on different topics, all across the place. You got to bring them together. He wants everything to be so simple. It doesn't work that way in Washington.
Right. And
period.
I think, and they may go for this, but I think this is what's wrong with Washington. I think this is why Republicans are fed up, because I could see Harry Reid or Nancy Pelosi demanding and getting this from the robots that follow them in lockstep, Laura. But Republicans, they won in a landslide a year ago in historic proportions, and each one of those Congress people and senators represent a district that sent them in there to do something, and I think they're going to be pretty ticked at these rules and requests by Ryan.
I think so, Steve. I think that you're right that this is a problem. I don't think it's a Republican or Democrat problem. I think that this is a politician problem. I mean, can you imagine going on a job interview and saying that you won't even do the interview unless you're promised that you're hired, that you get tenure before you start, and by the way, that you get extra vacation before you've even worked a day? It's totally ridiculous. And Ryan's argument for his demand is that he said, the Speaker of the House can't be effective if he's worried that at any time he's going to be replaced. But yeah, he absolutely can. That's the entire point. Everyone doing their job should be afraid that if they don't do it well, that they're going to get replaced by someone else.
Yeah, but you say it's not a Democrat or Republican thing. It is, because you never, ever see a revolt of any kind or anybody get out of line, with the exception of a handful of really leftist radicals, and they're all radical leftists, but I mean really off the charts, in the House or the Senate when it comes to the Democrats. They march in lockstep. There's no diversity of opinion when it comes to them. So this is a Republican issue.
Well, I don't know that there's no diversity of opinion, but I will say that, yes, that you'll see in the Republican Party, you'll see factions that are really very different between the more conservative factions and the more liberal factions. And there really is a really major difference. And that's why you're seeing that somebody like Ryan to go in there, that he's going to need to have these different factions united in supporting him. Right. Otherwise, the Republicans will do what they always do, which is the minute one of their people says something that they don't like, they accuse that person of not really being a Republican or not really being conservative enough. Okay. So, I mean, I think that Ryan is smart to say, if you're going to have me do this job, you're going to have to commit that you really want it to be me, and that you can't run the first time I say something you disagree with. I
just think it's over the line. All right, let's talk about this this phony, fake clockmaker boy, whatever his name is, from Texas, a 14-year-old Muslim boy, Ahmed Mohammed, who brought a clock to school, looked like a bomb. They called the police, rightfully so, and now he was at the White House the other day. Let's put up a picture of him. Here he was the day before he went to the White House, hugging a wanted by the international community murderer, dictatorial thug in Sudan, and then he goes to the White House, and now it turns out he and his family, they're moving to Qatar, or Qatar, however you want to pronounce it. I say good riddance, Adam.
You know, it's surprising to me that, you know, listen, in the day and age we're living in, there's a lot of people that are worried about what's going on with schools, with all the horrific things going on, and you add to boot to that terrorist attacks. So when you have a kid come to school, any reasonable school official is going to err on the side of trying to do the right thing. And they're going to investigate this.
Right.
No surprise to me. The fact that it's blown up this much is incredible.
No pun intended. All right, Laura, I'm going to have you weigh in on this. You're not going to be able to see this, but I'll tell you what it is. This is, let's roll 77 and watch.
عشان بدي أقطع اليهودي.
ليش بدك تطعن اليهودي؟
لأنهم سرقوا أرضنا.
سرقوا أرضنا، بدك تطعنيهم بإيش؟
بالسكين.
يا قوية أنت، إن شاء الله يا بابا.
From a Facebook page, allegedly from a Palestinian father, a little girl about 2-3 years old with a knife. I want to stab a Jew. Why do you want to stab a Jew? Because he took my land. This is what the Israelis are up against, a society that indoctrinates and teaches this to their children from the time they could breathe.
You know, Steve, it's interesting when I saw this, and obviously it's extremely
We got 20
disturbing.
seconds. Go ahead.
But I think that this is a classic example of you see what you're conditioned to see. So I see this, and the first thing I think of is, what are we doing in our community to make sure that we're not passing down lessons of violence and hatred to our own children?
I don't understand. The first thing I see is Israel can never make peace with a society that teaches their children to stab Jews. You see that we have a problem? I don't get it. Thank you, panel. We got to go. We're coming back.